Hi, welcome. Very warm greetings to you all. Thank you once again for joining us for another Pariyatti Presents event. My name is Buddhasahassanamavali, and I'm here on behalf of Pariyatti as its Executive Director. We're grateful that you've all joined us today. For those of you who are not already familiar with Pariyatti, we're a nonprofit charitable organization based in the USA. Our mission is to enrich the world by disseminating the words of the Buddha, providing sustenance for the seeker's journey, and illuminating the meditator's path. Pariyatti imports books from around the world, reprints books, publishes new titles, and converts existing material into digital formats. We protect and provide an enormous catalog of Dhamma resources in many languages and formats that otherwise would not be as easily available. We offer many of our free resources, such as the Pariyatti Learning Center, the Treasures of Pariyatti, Dhamma Storytime, and Daily Words for Inspiration via email, RSS feeds, and our mobile app. We offer most audio and video material, as well as many eBooks and audiobooks free of charge, including a large number of resources for students of SN Goenka. We also organize donation-based residential Pali workshops and facilitate pilgrimages for Vipassana meditators. Due to the pandemic, however, these had to be cancelled both in 2020 and 2021. We're hoping to restart both of these popular offerings soon. For more information about Pariyatti, please do visit our website at pariyatti.org. So for today's event, we're joined by Klaus Nothnagel, who's a Pali teacher and a Vipassana teacher in the tradition of SN Goenka. Today, Klaus will discuss the Exploring the Path course, which is part of our Pariyatti Learning Center. You can access this rich resource online at learning.pariyatti.org. Today, Klaus will be interviewed by Marta Van Patten. Marta is a documentary filmmaker and also a Vipassana teacher in the tradition of SN Goenka. Without further ado, I give you Klaus and Marta.
Thanks, Prihas. Welcome, Klaus. It's really nice to have this time with you today.
Hello, hi, welcome.
So let's, are you calling in from, are you in Germany now?
Yes, we were back from Poland 2 weeks ago, and we'll be back in Dhammapala at the center in 2 weeks as we are home, which is very cold weather. We are living in the mountains and we had lots of rain, fortunately, while other areas were having forest fires. So we feel quite fortunate to have that amount of water.
Yeah. All right, well, let's jump right in. We're really interested to interview you today about the Pali Learning Center, the Pali syllabuses that you've created over the years. So maybe we can get a little bit of background on that. So we can go back to the beginning of the story, which is, how did you start learning Pali? I mean, what inspired you in the beginning?
I cannot really say what inspired me. It just happened. It was a kind of a far cry. Back then there were no newsletters, but 86 or 87, I heard that there was a 1-year Pali course going on in Dhammagiri. I was thrilled because staying in along with my wife Edith, so we tried to convince ourselves that that would be a good idea, staying for 1 year in Dhammagiri. But I didn't even know what was Pali at that time, so I checked in the dictionaries and I heard and I read and learned that this is the language of the Buddha. So I was really thrilled, and I tried all my best to get the visa and to get I applied, but the problem was that I actually was a school teacher, so it was kind of illusion because I wouldn't have gotten 1 year off. There was no sabbatical at those years. But fortunately, one of my colleagues who was 55 plus, he told me that, there's a new law for old age teachers to enable young teachers to get a place. And he has said he's going to have some years off. So I also tried on that law, and they gave me this, by mistake. And then we got our visa, and that's how we went to Dhammagiri. And as soon after a couple of weeks, I was really thrilled because I felt that Pali is for me at least. I felt it was very beneficial to understand many of the things, including the precepts that I have been trying to follow.
You mean it helped you understand the precepts better when you started learning Pali?
Yes, because maybe that's a short personal story, but you know, as I said, we're living in Bavaria here in the mountains. It's quite, we haven't been living there, but in Bavaria all the time, and it's quite a Catholic area. And I was grown up and educated very Christian. My parents were Protestant, and I was quite enthusiastic about these, you know, how you call it, 10 Commandments, especially those last ones. And I was trying to keep them till the age of maybe 14, 15 or something. And then I felt I was a bit of a fool because around me, I saw people not, you know, keeping them. And so I lost faith, and I did a great offense for my childish feeling. And I was expecting God to punish me, but he didn't. So I lost all faith, and I went. Now, when I started learning Pali and I understood the deeper meaning of those precepts, as the formula says, Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami, and this formula is repeated all over, then the deeper meaning of it means abstain. So I abstain with this Veramani. Sikkhapada is the path of training, to be trained or to train myself, because then it is Samadhiyami, I determine to train myself, walking the path of abstention, which in my, you know, it was so thrilling to see this and to understand it, because in my previous history, it was also thou shalt not. So it's quite a difference that I felt, and it was very thrilling to me, and to see that this is the path of the Buddha, which includes training, which includes errors, which includes, you know, you move further, but it's not a command, it's a self-commitment.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah, maybe also, I mean, you know, also these the formulation of the Panatipata and Adinadana and all this is also very, very inspiring, because when you have Adinadana, it's not thou shalt not steal, it is, you know, not taking what is not given to you, or taking what is not taking what is given. So it's a completely different approach than stealing. And also, if you look into the path, it's not the purpose only to abstain, but it goes further. It goes on towards the opposite side. So it's what later on in the commentary I read in the suttas, it's from varita, it turns into charita. So you should not only steal, but do the opposite. You should not only not steal, but do the opposite. Help, give, be generous. So, and if you look into any of these precepts, it shows clearly that from avoiding, it turns into performing. And this was very, very important for me to understand. And this, as a matter of fact, changed also, in a way, my life. It changed my practice, and I decided to learn Pali more.
I'm tempted to ask you how it changed your life, but that's a whole nother story, I'm sure.
It's a whole other story, yes. I mean, just to be short, it deepened my practice in the sense that I was more determined to follow anything that all the silas, and also maintaining the regular practice on a more regular base, on a more serious base than I had done before, because before I had all my doubts, but there the vicikicca, what I later learned, it's vicikicca, all these doubts and you know, were minimized.
Right. Okay. Well. Okay. So eventually you started teaching Pali. Now it's a big jump from when you first started learning to teaching, but if you can explain a little bit about that progression, how you ended up developing a syllabus
again, it was a kind of a challenge, you know, so during the stay in Dhammagiri, and we stayed a little longer, and I helped with the translation here and there, some word by word. I didn't have, of course, good knowledge of Pali, but I helped translating things word by word. So I took the dictionary and did it every word. And so I came, this is the way I still do it. And then after we have gone home from Dhammagiri, back home, suddenly 2 years, I think it was 95 or so, I received a message from Dhammagiri that Goenkaji wanted to spread the Pali worldwide, and he wanted me to teach a Pali course, you know, which was really a shock and a challenge, because I hadn't continued learning Pali so intensely, and I didn't even know how to teach it. But this was the years, you know, your teacher says you should do this, and you don't say no, whatever he asks you to do. So yes, in a way, I got my material together, what I had from Dhammagiri and what I had studied in between. And then there was a first 3-day Pali course organized in Dhammagaya, which was then the German house where the courses were running. It was 3 days, and I mainly from, you know, just 1 or 2 suttas and a bit of vocabulary, quite different from today. But that was the base. It was the first time that it happened. Yes, and then, yeah, and then it went on. You know, there was another one here and another 3 days. Then there was one in France where there was when the Chatasangayana CD-ROM was, you know, inaugurated. Then there was a big invitation to bhikkhus and monks in France, from Cambodia, from Thailand. And they invited me also to give some short Pali workshop before that. And yeah, so that was how it started.
Okay. And the year that you spent at Dhammagiri, now, was Tandanji was the teacher for that year, or?
No, that was Dr. Pant.
Okay, Dr. Pant.
Yes, but Tandanji is actually my, how you say, I don't know what's the English word, my respected number one. Yes.
There he is.
And so he was the Pali teacher, actually, and appointed by Goenkaji all these years. And so we had quite some communication. At one time we met in Jaipur to sit together, a 30-day course. And after the course, he said, okay, we should, I asked him some questions. He said, we should communicate further. And so our communication went. I asked him some questions, and you know how it was at those years. You had these aerograms. It takes a few weeks back and a few weeks forth, and you never know by the time whether it comes or not. And this was very troublesome. And so at one time he said I should take another year off, which was quite of, again, a kind of illusion for me. And but because he wanted to teach me face to face, he said, you know, he wanted to go to Theravada Pali to teach me more. But it so happened that I could take a year off, and then one time at the end of, it was 99, I think, at the end of one of the long courses where we sat in the States, I received another aerogram from Tandanji. He said, so now you can come at next year at this time in early spring to Dhammasalila, where he had then inaugurated a 45-day course, not only for me, but also for others. And this actually made me, again, you know, get more material. And by the end of the course, he challenged me. So he gave me all kind of suttas, and the way he taught was a bit of, you know, I would say disorganized in my sense of German way of, you know, it was more Indian. So today he did this core, this sutta, and the next day this sutta. And later and evenings we met and sat together, because he wanted me to teach him some computer, which was starting those years. He didn't know how to write an email. He didn't know how to use Word. And then at the end of the 45 days, you know, he gave me a big bunch of suttas, and he said, you know, I know you think I'm not organized, but I wanted to do it like this. Now you have everything, and it's your task to organize it, and I want you to put it together into what is the Eightfold Noble Path. So he made this challenge, and yes, and I made a vow to, especially after I mean, I started before, but when I heard that he's passed away, later on, I made a vow to fulfill this, and that's how it really came about, to give me some structure in what I had collected so far.
And how did you meet Tendenji? Did he come to Dhammagiri during the year you were there, or how?
Yes. He was there, and as I said, we got an extension of visa, so we stayed there, and he was there every winter. We were there every winter. So he visited the Pali class, and he found, you know, I was translating a bit of things, and so we came into talking. But the actual meeting, when he heard, or he knew, probably he knew that I had been giving 2 Pali workshops before, of 3 days. Then when we met in Jaipur after the 30 day, we sat together for some time, and we arranged more close to have this. I didn't know that this was going to be a plan, or whether it was a plan, I still don't know, you know, whether I should continue to teach or get material together to later on teach, but that's how it went.
Okay, well, and just before we move on to the syllabus you created, can you tell a little bit about the progression of that 1 year studying, from coming into it not knowing much about Pali, and then, I mean, did you fall in love with the language? How did that progress?
Well, to be honest, Dr. Pant didn't like my progress at all, because I got also into doing this, a lot of service, and especially in the garden. Mr. Robinson, who was there at those years, and also Dr. Pant, he was getting his child, and so sometimes the classes were late, and so I thought, okay, I'll stay with the garden and things like that. And in the afternoon, I had a lot of other stuff to do, so I didn't do my homework. He gave us homework, and I thought I'll do it tomorrow. And I'm not very good at vocabulary. Still, I'm not very good. So I used the dictionary, and then the next morning, you know, he didn't even ask me. He said, you know, Klaus, okay, can you tell your homework? And he passed over me, and he said, okay, you know, this is Klaus. Don't ask him. He's doing a lot in the garden. And so my progress wasn't very, you know, successful. I wasn't very happy with my progress. But then it happened that I got sick, as we all got usually after 1 year or during 1 year in those years. And I stayed in the room. And then there was this situation that we had this old Satipatthana, Goenkaji used this old Satipatthana translation English of some, I have it somewhere around, I forgot where who had translated, and there were lots of, you know, leaks. And when he gave this discourse in English, there's an old discourse, and he says, oh, it's not there. And he just does it by himself. And so the decision was made to retranslate it, or to translate it better. And I was asked, because I had this time now, and it was the turn from the first to the second year, and I was in bed, or, you know, resting. And so I started with that. And then I made quite a lot of progress, because, you know, going through the Satipatthana Sutta word by word and translating it. And so that was when it really started. And then I also got you know, I really like to have the effort of translating it and reading it more. You know, I read it, tried to understand without looking into the dictionary what was it all about. And of course, with the Satipatthana Sutta, it was more easy, because I knew quite a bit about it already from the discourses and from the courses. And so it deepened, and that is what was the situation then, how I continued. Whenever I had some time and I found some text which I found interesting, I tried to translate it myself in the way I just described.
Okay. And when you said that Goenkaji was looking at the Satipatthana Sutta and there was many leaks, what did you mean by that?
Leaks, well, there was, maybe not the parts were not translated. Paragraphs were just not translated. Yeah. So he went through it was in Devanagari, Hindi or Pali, and which he knew, and then he read from that, and then he said, oh, as I said, it's not there. I still hear him saying that, and then he said the summary in his own words, and then he went further, and then it was actually Dr. Moore who said, we must make a new Satipatthana Sutta. And he went to Dr. Pant. They were living up there in the Dhammagiri quarter. We were, Edith and I myself were fortunate to have been moved just around the corner there in this family quarter. And then they came down and said, Klaus, you're not so well. So can you spend some time? Can you do it? Even my skills were not really, in line with that serious task.
Okay, but I guess they saw that you were going to grow into that job, I guess.
You never know. In hindsight, I as I said at the beginning, I didn't know why I went to Dhammagiri under these circumstances where I wasn't even able to do it because of my job, and still it just went. I got this leave, I went there, I got some fun in Pali, and Dhamma sometimes works in a strange way without you being asked whether you want to do it this way or not.
Yeah. Okay, great. So maybe we can talk now about this beautiful syllabus you developed, and I have a soft spot for it because I did get the fortune to take a 2-week workshop with you at some point, and I loved it. And so could you just talk about what the course covers? This is the one that I know you've developed another one now, but the one that Tandanji challenged you to develop.
Yes. So if we look into the whole picture and into the whole intention that I, before Tandanji and then with Tandanji, and especially after Tandanji, had in mind, one thing was that already in Dhammagiri, we asked Dr. Pant, sometimes he replied, sometimes not, where are the suttas from that Goenkaji relates, So I developed the desire to collect all these suttas that Goenkaji, tells, or the stories he tells, even in the long courses. So this was one thing. And then finally, of course, then when Tandanji challenged me with this task to do it in line of the Eightfold Noble Path, I had a clearer structure, but what I didn't have was the introduction. Now, that is why I added a chapter 1 and a chapter 2. Chapter 1 is I tried to collect suttas that foster saddha, devotion, and confidence in the teaching, and also the gratitude. That is why I call it, so there is dullabho, so rare. Here we find suttas where the Buddha himself said it's so rare to be human, to gain human birth, so rare that the Buddha appears, and all these kind of suttas that, or a few of them, where the rarity and the good fortune that those have who live now, being enabled to get the teaching at all. And the second part then is called apaka de manusesu, so few out of many, and there are suttas where especially verses say that there is so few who really cross to the other shore. Others, they are running along in ignorance, and they are so dark in their eyes they don't see, and so few see. So this is again to help to develop gratitude for those who read this sutta, or which is the result, I hope, is the result of this sutta. And then the third one is of the first chapter. It's where the qualities of the sangha, of the bhikkhus are described. And I already had a few suttas, for example, where Buddha visits Anuruddha and 2 companions in the forest and asks them, how are you coming along? How are you dwelling? How are you getting along? Are you getting enough food? And they say, yes, we are getting along well. We are getting enough food. We are, you know, that we are dear to each other. Whenever we see each other, it is like milk and water joined together, and whatever the other things we feel is our thought. So these suttas, and when I finally tried to find the title, I found this Tenami Samanappiya, which is a sutta from the Therigatha by a person called Rahini, and she expresses her appreciation of the samanas to her father, who challenged her with all kind of biased prejudice. And that is why, so that is the first chapter 1. And chapter 2, then also it says, it wants to say that this is a path not only for the bhikkhus, it's a path for each and every one. And respectively, there are introducing suttas to the next chapters where the Arya Atangigo Maggu starts, with some summaries, with some short introduction to explain what is the Eightfold Noble Path. And then there is the main chapter where each of these constituents of the Eightfold Noble Path are explained with various suttas that I tried to find. And some of them I got from Tanaji.
Could you talk a little bit about when you teach a workshop, how you do, what I really enjoyed about it was you did a combination of grammar, but also chanting, so people could learn how to pronounce. And then you would teach us not only how to pronounce, but how to be with sensation, to try to be with sensation while chanting. Could you talk about that style of the way that you try to tailor when you do a live workshop to different types of people who have different interests?
And different languages and different language backgrounds.
Yeah.
Always a challenge for the recitation. So actually I follow the example that how Tanaji, taught me, or which I learned from this workshop from Tanaji. He just kind of, ignored the individual background of the participants. He just went ahead with whatever he wanted to do in the way he wanted to do it. And so I also try to select, if now it were 10 days, so there was no workshops over the last 2 years due to COVID, or the last 3 years due to also the task that we run the center in Poland. I didn't have much time. Even so, now I'm retired, I feel more, I have less time actually. So I have the concept, and then during the workshop, I have the idea of what suttas I want to take up. And then during the workshop, of course, as you may remember, I said, okay, this afternoon we want to do this. And then I feel that this sutta is a bit too easy, or it's too delicate, or it's too challenging. It's not easy to have this also for the participants to have this workshop, because we meditate a lot, we recite a lot, we meditate even before each sutta, and then we go into grammar. Grammar is not everybody's favorite. So I don't know if I catch your question correctly, but this is the way how I like to balance. And of course, it has to be, there needs to be a certain atmosphere before we start chanting. And that is why there is this information shared by Goenkaji, where he gave this talk on how to recite properly, that of course, one needs to understand properly what one recites. So there's the challenge that we always have to go through every sutta before we start reading it. Then we read it, and then when we get more fluent, we recite it in the way that, I was trained by Tanaji. Whether that's exactly how Buddha really recited or read it, we don't know. Does it hit your question?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I always found it really helpful to that triple the right way to chant, which I understood was like you said, to understand the meaning, to pronounce it properly, and to be with some sensation. Is that right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so I guess the next one is, then after you developed this syllabus, it became part of the Pariyatti Learning Center, the online Pariyatti Learning Center. I guess maybe we could look at one of the lessons from Exploring the Path on the Pariyatti Learning Center website, maybe something that's one of the suttas you especially are fond of. I think we were hoping that you would show us All That Is Dear to Me, because that's one of the ones that we all love so much when you teach it.
Yes, it is. It is also which gave me then the title for the what I was looking for, and especially it has one. I just try to find it here. It was the sutta that also was very inspiring for me to read it, and maybe the background is, as I just mentioned, so it is from one girl by the name of Rohini, and she in her previous years apparently had given some big donation or some respective donation to one of the Buddhas, and through that she had very high qualities, which enabled her to, after the first talk of that she listened to the Buddha, she became a Sotapanna. She automatically started. And then she, as a young girl, she was living with her family, of course, and she later became a nun, and she became also an arahant, it is said. But while she was living with her family, she apparently gave a lot of donations to the monks. And her father, at that time, a follower of the Brahmin sect or caste, he was from the Brahmin caste, he kind of got quite upset. And at one time he said, and that's what the verses say, that, oh, you Rohini, you keep on saying samana, even when you fall asleep, as soon as you wake up, you say samana, and you're always praising them. And for me, they are people, they are just fond of food and drink. And you give so much to them. Why are they so dear to you? This line is very lovely because it is kene samana piya, because later on we will see she replies from the interrogative kene, she will say tene, and from te to me. So she will reply to that and she will say, this is the reason why they are so dear to me. And her father, the last line, last verse here of the father, he says, akama kama ala sa para dut upajivino asam sukha sadhu kama kena te samanapia. All the bias is there. They are so lazy, kama. They are not following any duties. And they always, kind of living on what is given by others. And they are always full of expectation, wishing sweet things. So sadhu kama is sweet things. Okay, so this is the opportunity for Rohini to reply to her father. And she opens and says, you have been asking me so often about this, and now I want to praise their wisdom and whatever, and their wisdom, their sila, and their efforts. And now this first verse that she refers to is so nice to be comparing with the question. So rather than akama kama ala sa, what the father says, they are lazy, not dutiful, then she says kama kama analasa. So they do their work and they are very ardent. They are not lazy, they are assiduous. Because what are they doing? Kama se tassa karaka. they're doing the biggest work, the highest work that can be done. What is it? Ragang, dosang, pajahanti. They are throwing away, leaving behind, destroying, dispelling, craving, and aversion. And that is why they are so dear to me. Tena me samana piya. Then she goes on and there's tini pa pasemulani. So the root of these three evils, dhunanti suci karino, they have destroyed and do suji karino, positive things. They do good things. And they have sabbam papang pahine sang. From them, all evil falls away because they have removed these three roots. And then again, with every line she closes, tena me samana piya. Next verse, she praises that they are suci, pure in kaya kamang, vaji kamang, and mano kamang. So pure in body, speech, and mind. And again, that is why they are so dear to me. Then the next verses, I will maybe summarize a bit, because they are full of learning. They hold up the Dhamma and they live the holy life. Aya Dhamma Jivino. And Attang is the meaning. Dhammangcha Desanti. They teach the Dhamma and the proper meaning of it. Tenami Samanapiya. And again, this line is repeated. The first one, Bahu Sutta Dhamma Dhara, Arya Dhamma Jivino. So they are wise, they teach the Dhamma and its meaning. And Ekaga Chitta Satimanto. So they are full of concentration and full of awareness. And they do not, and the next line again, they do not accept anything from anyone. Now, before we come to the last line, the last verse, I would like to again give a personal excursion. When I read this sutta or translated this sutta, I felt so thrilled when I read especially this last verse, which is not actually the last verse, because later on her father, he is thrilled by her reply, and he also then takes the precepts and follows the teaching of the Buddha. But here in this verse, something is expressed that is something that everyone, I think, who walks on the path, when he meets someone he has served before, or for us, Eden and myself, when we meet friends that were in Dhammagiri those years, even if it is 20 years back, we meet again, it's just like it was yesterday. And I may give a, I did in the early 70s, I did a course in Dalhousie. And I met one time only, one person who was also in that course. I think we haven't even seen ourselves during that course, really. I don't know whether we talked about, but when we met and we came to know and we recognized each other, it was excessively thrillful. Even so, it was, I don't know, 25 years later. And we just, was jumping in joy, like Grateful Dead song somewhere there. And if I compare that with, with my school colleagues, where for over 9 years we were living together and sharing the school bench for a long period. Whenever it happens that I meet someone there, we don't have these regular meetings, at least I don't go, because we're never home anyway. It's a completely different, experience, meeting someone whom you walked on the path and someone, who you just know. And this is expressed in these verses, which we will conclude at a moment. But there are is another sutta that explains it. When Buddha, he takes Ananda on a hill, and below this hill, there are Mahamoggallana, Sariputta, Anuruddha, and all these venerable, developed bhikkhus, and they all have a disciple going along with them. And the Buddha says to Ananda, you know, Ananda, people have the same qualities and they will automatically be drawn to the same qualities. And then he says something that is so inspiring, I feel. He says, Dhatu Sova, it's the inherent quality, Satta Samsandanti Samenti, that people walk together and meet together. And he says, like in the past, these people have been walking together and meeting together because it is Kalyana Muttaka, Kalyana Muttakihi, Samsandanti Samenti, because it is the inherent quality to do good that they meet. It is the inherent quality, Atita, Addanang, that they have met in the past, and it is the inherent quality that they also will meet in the future. And to me, reading this sutta, which I refer to now in short, was explaining the feeling and the empathy and the friendship that I feel with anyone I have served together, I have worked together on Dhamma, I have, been in Dhammagiri over many years. In the winter we met, and this is something that is uncomparable with a different friendship for me. And this, when I read this sutta here in these last lines, I felt they are so inspiring. Nana kula bhavachita, nana jana padihija. So these people, they come from different families. They have renounced the world and come from different countries. Anya manyang piyayanti. Each other, towards each other, they have so much respect. Piya is dear. They are so dear to each other. And that is why she concludes this. Teneme samana piya. That is why they are so dear to me. So this is why this sutta for me also was so important. And I usually, bring it up at every workshop. Even so, sorry, now it was a bit long, the explanation.
Okay, it's beautiful. So in the Pali Learning Center in this course, there's different types of learning tools like flashcards or multiple choice and quizzes and things. Did you develop those, or did Pariyatti develop those?
No. What I do is just that I have the text, I have an English translation, and then later when we started, somebody asked, I think it was Jeff and then Rick, and have a little introduction, but this introduction get longer and longer. So this is what I do. But underneath each of the Pali texts, I select the vocabulary that is, what I think is useful. Originally, I planned to do the vocabulary according, in a logical order. But it didn't work in any way. Every sutta has different vocabulary, and it was just too much work to find out which vocabulary, which term have I already used, and so forth. Mm. So I just note down this vocabulary, give the formatting of it, and then Steve actually does these exercises then. So yes, if we go all the way down, then there is this vocabulary that I usually summarize at the end of it. And I think there's tools. Steve takes them and does these exercises, which is very nice.
So it breaks down the word so people can understand how the word. Mm-hmm.
So if you have this kama, kama is desiring, and the last one, and means the negation, not, and kama means doing. It's like from karoti, to do. So, and also kama, we all know, it's a result of what in past was our volition that we did, or what we do.
There's another plan. I think there's maybe a plan to make this to make this into a book. Is that right?
I don't know what Pariyatti wants to do. The original plan, actually, we didn't mention this, was to do it in a book. So it took quite some years till I collected the material, formatted it in a way, and then I came to Rick, Rick Retcher, who was at those time in charge of Pariyatti, and then Rick said, "Oh, the period of books is over. Have to do it digital." And that time I had VR iPhones, and now he wanted me to have to digitalize it in completely different fonts. So because now it's out of these fonts were out of date, so we couldn't use them for the internet, and so I had to it was a big challenge and a big I'm not interested in any computer software and all these kind of things, so I had to train myself to reformat all these suttas. And that turned out into the exploring the past as we have it now online. Rick said, nobody will read any books now. We have to do it online. That was 10, 15 years back. now Steve mentioned, it's not my choice. Of course, I would be happy to have it as book, because I am a reader of books. I just use the computer whenever I need to, but I enjoy reading books, and some people may still do, but this is I don't know. It's not my plan. Whoever I would be in favor of, and support it in any way. But what we do now is, I was told that the Spanish want to translate it, and over these years, so we started, I think 11, over these 10 years, the whole approach has changed. Of course, my Pali knowledge has been increasing. Then I have been, asked to be more precise in the introduction, because they were very short. So I put footnotes in the introduction, which before I had, if I had any, in the Pali texts, but nobody may read the Pali and then the footnotes, but reads the introduction, so the footnote gets lost. So I kind of changed it over the years. And then also as one intention was to present a text from any of the books of the Tipitaka. So I have managed by now, even Visuddhimagga, and so and also I included a bit of the idea of what is about, what do we know about the commentary. So I added some of the commentary, which is of course another challenge, but this is in the introduction. And now the Spanish want to translate it in Spanish. So using this opportunity, I start to re-editing all the previous suttas, so they are a bit more in line with the later ones. So that's what I'm trying to do currently.
Okay, so you went into this other sutta. Is there one more that you could kind of go through with us today? I think you mentioned maybe to go through how can a couple meet again for many lives.
Yes, I'm very happy with that sutta. I put it under right livelihood, and the sutta is Samajivi. So it means living together. And there is the situation of the couple by the name of, they have a son, and the son is Nakula. And so the father's name is Nakula Pita, and the mother's name is Nakula Marta. And they apparently have been living together for a period of lives, and even supporting the Buddha. So it is said that when they finally met the Buddha, and there are various suttas in the Tipitaka about these two, and especially also about the father. He asks some questions. And so they bowed and they said, now we found you, your son. Where have you been so long? So this is the base of their relationship, because apparently they have also been the Bodhisattva's father and mother sometime. So when the Buddha visited when they were staying in Susamagiri, which is a crocodile, Susamara is a crocodile where you listen to the sound of the crocodile. When they were living there, and the Buddha visited them at one time. And there they ask him that as long as they can think of their relationship, they have never, done wrong to the partner, and they are very, close to each other. They are not aware of they have done anything wrong, and they would like to meet together again. And personally, this is also a very important sutta, has been a very important sutta for me, because, to me, the perspective of becoming a Sotapanna seems to be quite far away. It's kind of, it takes some more lives for me, I'm pretty sure. But I'm encountering a wonderful relationship with a lovely wife. Now we are entering our 45th year soon of our being together. And when I read this sutta, I printed it out, translated it, printed it out, and when it was out, I put it into a frame, and you placed it in her study. And I think this sutta for us is a guideline. And when I found that and I prepared it and put it into this Exploring the Path, I may read this introduction that I wrote. At that time, I just read it this morning. I reread it this morning because I forgot about it. And I think it expresses exactly what I wanted to say with it. And then we'll have a few lines in this sutta. So this selection of the Patamasajivi Sutta is dedicated to all devoted couples that have committed themselves to face the challenges of life with ongoing mutual love, appreciation, and loyalty, establishing a steadfast relationship, maintaining lifelong affection and fondness through a long life, facing day-to-day vicissitudes and family demands till a last assuring and loving goodbye on the deathbed is always an inspiring event to be encountered. Even so, in today's world where singledom, single parenthood, frequent exchange of relationships are common, still a deep yearning to reliable durability in partnership remains. The Buddha's guideline and reply presented in this sutta may foster assurance, comfort, and confidence to all those who aspire long-lasting and happy relations. If both partners aspire further to spiritual growth and development, they can take encouraging inspiration from the couple Nakula Pita and Nakula Mata mentioned in this Patamasajivi Sutta. So this is, I think it was, very touching for me to read this. And in the sutta, in the last paragraph, and there is a second sutta which is called Buddhasahassanamavali Sutta. The Buddha says exactly the same thing in exactly the same words. So he says, if householders, both wife and husband, long to meet each other in this life and the lives to come, they should have matching faith, matching virtue, matching generosity, and matching wisdom. So the Pali word is sama saddha, sama sila, sama jaga, sama panya. And then they will be in one's other side so long as this life lasts, abhisamparayanche, and the future lives as well. And the sutta concludes with the following verses, which is what the Buddha, how the Buddha at times concludes his discourse. Ubo saddho vadanyuche sanyata dhamma jivino. When both are kind and full of self-control, living a life of Dhamma, ti homti jani patayo anyamanyang piyang vada. So they speak together only in pleasant words and are dear to each other. both husband and wife. Attasam pa kura honti, pa sukham upajayati. They will encounter good fortune in many ways and will dwell happy together. Amita dhumangche honti ubhinang sama silinang. This is a bit of a difficult word. Amita means the enemies are saddened, but the meaning is because they are holding up the sila so firmly, both practice, then the enemies have no chance to overcome them. And in this way, if they ida dhammang charitvana sama silabhata ubo nandino devalokasmin modanti kama kamino, thus leading a life of Dhamma, both in sila and performing good deeds, they will enjoy heavenly worlds and they will delight in that pleasures, in the pleasures they are striving for. So this is, I think, a very suitable sutta for the current period where we are developing, in my understanding, our paramitas, our qualities to achieve whatever we try to achieve in any of the future lives, because it seems not to be the period to gain liberation, complete liberation right now. That's, my understanding, and it's the understanding of Edith, and that's why we are together trying to grow, and we also hope, of course, to meet each other on the path in future lives to come. So that is why I included this sutta. I found it very touching.
That's wonderful. So now we're almost done here, but before we close, I understand you're developing a second syllabus, a second course. Before we close, could you tell us a little bit about that? What that will be?
Well, again, it's as you may know, it's a challenge of Tandemji. It's so Kwekdachi, when we were in Dhammagiri, and I was working in the garden, Kwekdachi had this seal to write also his appreciation of the qualities of the Buddha, falling in the tradition of devotional constructions, devotional Pali, texts like the China Lankara, where the Pali words gets combined in such a way that it is expressing the qualities of the Buddha. And I have it somewhere to show you. So, and then 98, these two booklets were printed. Okay, I don't know whether it reflects properly. So this is, the first one is the Buddha Guna Gatavali. And while we were working there in the garden, we could hear Kwekdachi reciting them for himself to get the meter and to change words. So he constructs of thousands of attributes of the Buddhas, usually adjectives. He combines in such a way that he expresses his appreciation of the qualities of the Buddha, and he pays his respect. That is why the last line always is Buddhang Tang Panamam Yaham. I pay respect with folded hands to the Buddha. And before he does some of the, he combines the vocabulary. There is just the first one, but from this Buddha Guna Gatavali, he later on summarized and selected words to the Buddhasahassanamavali. Vali means row, and the first one, Gunagata, means qualities, verses of the qualities. And there he has prepared 1,250 verses. So it's a quite big booklet. And then from that, he selected these other verses. It's the same verses, but just 120. And when we met with Tandemji, we wanted to translate it together. And that was when we did it in the evenings sitting in front of the computer and having these verses, typing them in and translating them. But usually, as India was that time, there was no electricity. Suddenly the computer broke down and we switched on a candle and waited and chatted. And this was very nice for me, very nice in my memory, very nice. We talked about all kinds of things, but then electricity didn't come back. And then, we gave it up. So again, by the end of the course, he said, Klaus, here is this Buddhasahassanamavali. Goenkaji wants that to be translated. You do it. Okay. Because when it was published, it was only published in Pali, in Devanagari, and also in Roman script, but it was never really translated. So over the years, I forgot about it, and then I remembered, and I didn't have the time, and I started now a few years ago back. So slowly, I will hope to finalize it, and this is what was another challenge. So this is what I do, because I took this vow, promised tendency, and I'm doing it also with fun, but it's not my favorite, if I'm honest, because anyway. Okay, so maybe the first verse, as you can see, most of the words are known to everyone. So be Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Sayambhu Vicha Jarana Sampano Bhutam Tang Panamamyang. So as I said, every verse ends in Bhutam Tang Panamamyang. I pay my respect to the Buddha with bow down, with folded hands. And then Sopi, this is he to him. Bhagava, the quality of Bhagava. Arahang, Samma Sambuddho. Sayambhu, he is enlightened by himself, Sayambhu. And the quality of Vicha Charana Sampano. So this is the first verse which both of these booklets start. And maybe I have marked down what Goenkaji says in the first one, in the Buddha Gunagatavali. This is the one with the 1,250 verses. He says, I felt so much rapture and bliss at the time of composing these verses, and I continue to feel the same when I read them again and again now. The pious recollection of the Buddha's qualities generates delight in the whole of my being. It is only natural that my grateful mind becomes filled with such emotions while singing the praise of the Lord Buddha, whose teaching has made my life so worthwhile and so fruitful. So this is the Buddha Gunagatavali. And in the Buddhasahassanamavali, he writes also to try to warn for proper usage of these verses. He said, verses were being constantly composed by the heart overflowing with devotion, and 1,250 verses were composed. After this, an equal number of verses could have been further composed with a collection of words that remained. And then he expresses, because that was published in 1908, in time of the Buddhama horse 12 in November. But I can also see a big danger for which it is necessary to be alert. In future, the recitation of this Sahasranamavali should not become a lifeless, meaningless ritual. So that is why also, I was a bit hesitant. And then when the audio, I was asked to add this audio, which also we were trained with tendency, because you never know if this audio is, in the proper way. I remember having heard Goenkaji in his residence doing this, but I don't feel, you cannot say this is the way to do it. But the way to do it is that you really have to be, if you want to, understand the meaning, you have to understand the meaning again. If you recite these verses, they are very inspiring. They collect all kind of qualities, and Goenkaji says that these qualities of the Buddha are so numerous, so endless, so appamano, that you can really add any good positive expression into that and phrase it into a gatha, into a verse. And if you understand that, and only if you understand it, and then you recite it, I think that helps to gain confidence and to inspire. But otherwise, just reading it and reciting it, it's a big danger that he wanted to point out. So I was quite hesitant to do it over the years, but finally I'm quite convinced that it's a good thing to do. So that's why I started doing that a couple of years ago.
So you're saying that you and Tendonji would both be together and hear Goenkaji reciting these as he was writing them?
No, Tendonji, I don't know whether he was there. No, but while we were serving at Dhammakiri in the garden, at times after the morning group sitting, especially in the monsoon when you have to do most of the work, so we could always hear from the teacher's residence some new verses, some strange verses which we haven't heard. It wasn't Hindi verses. I knew that it was Pali verses. And then he was composing, and later Tendonji told me, that this was what he was doing when we met so we never really knew. We asked Dr. Pandan, he said, yeah, he's doing something very nice and blah, 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 like this, but he never was very clear what it was. Yeah. And we thought, oh, is he recording a new chanting? Is he recording new, but there was no reply. It was only later than that Tendonji explained that this was what Goenkaji did, and he wanted to finish and have this. And he wanted also to have it as a Pali kind of Pali training. I think Maha Bodhi Society, they took it up at one time and used it in their courses, but nothing further happened as far to my knowledge.
Okay, wow. So this will be the first time it's translated into
English. Yeah.
English. Okay, and is it in Hindi yet, or
I'm
just
not sure.
Pali?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay.
So it's printed in Devanagari, but I don't know if it exists.
Okay. Wow. Wonderful. And is it difficult? You said you don't. I was curious. You said you don't really like doing it or something. Can you tell us more about that?
You have to be in the proper mood, in the real devotional mood to work with that. I can work with any sutta at any time from the Buddha, translating it, reading it, and trying to understand it, the meaning of it, and catching it. But these devotional verses, you need to have the proper attitude, and the proper mood when you work with them, because it's expressing so deeply what is felt at that moment in these verses, that you kind of have to feel the same thing to translate it properly. Otherwise, the translation for me will not catch the spirit, so to say. It may catch the meaning, but it doesn't convey the spirit. And some of that is really very delicate. If you look into, the repetition of maybe we can look into one of the other verses. This is a nice one, number 5 in the Buddhasahassanamavali. It says, Bhagarago, Bhagadoso, Bhakamoho, so Bhagava. So this is what we know from the commentary. This is the explanation, that in the commentary gives for what is a Bhagava. But then he adds also, Hagamano, Bhakamayo, Buddhang Tang Panamam Yaham. So he adds that he also has bhaka is from bunjati, to break away, banjati and bunjati. He has overcome all the conceit and all deceits. This is a very, very nice verse. I am fully in line with that. But there are some verses which is where, I like the combination, but I have to catch the meaning. So that is when it becomes, I take the verse and then I put it away and say maybe tomorrow, and so it takes a couple of days till I really get into it. I read it again and try to understand what is the meaning, and then again I try to catch it up. Yes, and then especially as I was asked to give a recitation also, there's so many ways. It's the words of vata, so it's the meter is vata, it's called vata. It's 8 syllables. So you have to have, you know, Bhaggarago, Bhakkadoso. So these 8 syllables is always, every line is the same, 8 syllables. So you also have to have the proper, you know, situation mentally and physically and inspirational to recite it properly in the way. And I don't know if I do it the way it should be done, you know.
So could we hear a little bit of this audio now?
Yeah, maybe everyone can hear when he feels he could hear, because, you know, if yeah, maybe you can play it. But as I said, you know, it should not be, it's an individual paying of respect and an individual feeling of you know, of devotion, of confidence. So, you know, if you play it now, it doesn't, you know, if you sit down and you want to learn it, and I think, you know, I would prefer in this way. It's for the reader to do it himself when he's in his own room and wants to do it.
Okay.
But not for this public event.
Okay. So this is just the beginning of this. You're just starting to put this into this format.
Well, I'm halfway through.
Okay. Okay. Well, but I guess Steve has started to put them into.
Yes. It's a bit it's a bit awkward with both of these learning programs. He's done. I've also done this you know, grammar introduction, because when we started with the Pali workshop, I was asked, you know, I felt it, you know, to go into Varda and all these big books is a bit difficult. So I was asked to do a grammar short introduction, and now Steve has made it very nice in a web format, and he is about to do the web format also for the other 2 courses. But the problem is, when you have Buddhasahassanamavali verse 1 and you want to go actually to verse 120, you have to scroll down all the way, and, you know, you get bored at times. I guess some of the students do, or some of the participants do, and the same thing with the other. So we have, with the Exploring the Path, we have the table of contents. There you can click on the table of contents on the link. But with the Buddhasahassanamavali, you cannot go from verse 1 to 120 without scrolling down. So they are greatly improving this, as far as I understand.
Klaus, could we go to the Pariyatti website? Could you just show us how the course is laid out on the website?
Okay, so this is the introduction. In general, actually, you will read there that the intention was to have short lessons and short suttas, but later on, you know, the sutta changed and they got longer, and I choose more from each sutta, because then the meaning of the sutta got changed. Okay, and then we could go to this download an outline of our lessons again. And here you see the table of contents, which I like to call it, all the suttas with English, not translations directly, but often, you know, to give you an idea of what is in the sutta. If you, for example, look at 136, Tamo Tama Sutta, this is what every 10-day student might be interested, if he is interested in any Pali, and it tells him exactly this is what Goenkaji, you know, refers to. And then you can click on this Tamo Tama Sutta from the table of contents, and you will be automatically going there. So if you go on the first button, you will see the introduction that is given there. And on the bottom of the introduction, you have then the link to the Pali lesson. And later on, we found that it may be useful to have a side-by-side. So the Pali lesson will have, as we explained, the vocabulary at the end. So if you open this, then you can see after the end, at the end. So on the top, you have the audio, and at the end of the sutta, you have the respective vocabulary. Depending on how many I think is important, it will be quite a number. So here we have quite a number. And once you have learned them in the way you like to learn them, you can then go to the vocabulary tools. It's preferred. Then in later we found that we have the Pali and English translation side by side. We started, I think, only after 5-6 years this way. And also there you have the audio on top. So if you click the audio, you can go through the sutta in the Pali, and again, you have the English on the other side, which is, I think, quite helpful. But again, this we need to re-edit in a bit of a way later on.
Mm-hmm. Great. And could we see just one of the other tools, maybe the flashcards or something like that?
Okay, you just click on the flashcard and then it shows you the meaning on the other side, and then you go further to the next one, and like this. You have a lot of, handsome was not, I think there was an E missing actually. You know, and then with the choose a studio mode, you can choose all kind of different learning tools, which is, I think the one, I don't know what is match, I think is the one which is quite nice. Okay, here you have to find what match. So if you have Manasa and you click on by mind, then it should disappear. If you have this kind of tools.
All right, well, I guess now there's some time for questions from the audience, so we can get to that. And thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
So let's see if there's any questions we can take now.
Okay, good.
So the first question we have here is, you use the translation with constant thorough understanding of impermanence on the level of sensations for sampajanya. Can you say a bit more about this?
Okay, it's a complex term, which I felt, so there's also an historical reason behind it. So actually, when in the 90s, 89 or 90, there was this, in Damagiri, there was this seminar, and certain translation terms were chosen, which was in line with Kwenkachi, and it was felt that though the Sampajanya translation, which is clear comprehension, or which is full understanding or full awareness or situational awareness, we have so many terms there, then it was felt that where does Sampajanya occur? So the Buddha, he says, Sampajana kari hoti, with each and every of the activities you do, which with each and every, alokiti, vilokiti, sampajana kari hoti, saminchiti, pasariti. So this is, with whatever you do, you have to maintain this sampajanya. Sampajana kari hoti. Kari means carry it, be, and maintain, and sampajana. So this makes constant and thorough. And then there is another explanation that the Buddha gives, that when you are sampajana, you have vidita, vedana, upachanti, vedana, upatahanti, and vidita avatangachanti. That means the process of observing and being with the sensations as they arise, as they stay, and then as they disappear. This is what Sampajana Kari Hoti is. That is what is Sampajanya. So this goes to the translation of Vedana on the base of Vedana, and of course the process of arising, staying, and moving away, passing away, makes it pointing to impermanence. That is why this whole block of, thorough understanding, constant and thorough understanding of impermanence on the base of Vedana, on the base of sensation, was chosen. And also it's a good approach for a meditator to stay with it.
Okay, great, thank you. So the next question somebody sent in is, where is the Patama Samma Ajiva Suttam in the Tipitaka?
well, I think it is, as we have taken it from the learning program, it is under some Ajiva, I think 3611 or something. And if you click on that and then you choose the Pali, whoever asked it, and you choose the Pali and go to the bottom, then there is the complete location in the Tipitaka. So I don't know by heart now all these, where all these sutras are located that I choose. But of course, for reference, it is always given either in the introduction or in the introduction and in the Pali at the bottom. So it's please have a look there, and then you will find it. Anyway,
Okay.
it's the complete sutta is there in the program.
Okay. Here's a question more relevant to our current times. If a country gets attacked and you're a meditator and you're asked to go to arms, how can this be in line with moral conduct? And a follow-up is, in Europe, with the sad war that is going on, people are forced to break their sila. What should one do in such a situation?
I'm fortunate enough to be not in the city in such a situation of the, to my understanding, most horrible situation that mankind can be. And unfortunately it is. And it reminds me a bit, when I came of age, sorry to give some personal example, but just to show what, before I try to reply, when I was to join the army there in Germany, we had, at those years, we had the alternative to refuse and to deny, but we had to go to do some prolonged social service. And for this, we had to go to a military tribunal, and you got some questions, and there was some voluntary groups that trained you to do it properly. So you were trained to reply to all these questions without, so you could, you sounded reasonable that you're a peaceful person. And we all knew that this is only on the theoretical level. So what I want to point out that it's very easy to say something, but once you're put in this situation that you were forced by your state to go to arms, or you want to defend your country, I think it's very easy to say something now and then to act. I wouldn't know how to act, but what we could say is that there is, usually two sides of it. One side is the country that attacks and forces its soldiers to attack. And now what happens with those soldiers in the mental state they are in? First of all, they have to do their duty, but how does then turn this duty into their own mindset? Do they also, get aggressive, increase hatred, and even go further beyond what is their duty? Do they torture and kill children and civilians who should not be involved in this? This is a very, from the chemical aspect, I think Buddha says, killing is always blameworthy and has negative karmic effects. But what is the intention of someone who kills? And that, to come to the part of the crest, it's a different intention there, because they want to defend. I would like to defend my country, my family, my property, and so there it's not, I think, that blameworthy, but I'm not a person to judge. Yeah, but still, from the karmic effect, I think that would not be as negative as someone who, is on the aggressive side. But still, if you are in this situation, of which I don't want to be in, and which I cannot even imagine how it would be, this horrible thing, then, also you have to take care that your mindset doesn't, go along and develop hatred and gets tense in the same way. And there is a saying of Buddha in various, I think it's in various suttas, but at least in the Dhammapada, where he says, Nahi verena vera ni samant ida kudachanam a ko dena samanti eso dhammo sanantano. So eso dhammo sanantano means, he says, this is an eternal law, an eternal truth. And what is this eternal truth? That hatred can never be appeased, never and nowhere be appeased by hatred. It's the opposite, akodene. So you should develop the feeling of compassion, of goodwill, even towards those who show hatred against you. And I think this would be a guiding line through all this horrible situation as what the people, feel in the core. And I recently read a quote from, the Defenders leader, and he said, once this war is over, we will maintain humanity, and we always want to do the best towards our enemies who did so much harm for them, and we show compassion towards them. I felt this was a very nice endemic approach, and I hope when this war, which happens in Europe, I mean, there's all kind of wars around anyway, but this affects us personally mostly, and also in Poland we can feel. So, I hope when this war is over, this will become a guiding line for peace again in Europe.
Thank you. Thank you. If this next question is from someone who is asking, if I want to read some of the Tipitaka books, it is such a vast field. Do you have any recommendations?
It's a vast field, and I don't know how much time we have left. It depends on the intention that you have. I mean, I could go through each and every now of these books, but for someone who wants to deepen his knowledge in Pali, in the teaching of the Buddha, I personally find what is so-called the early Buddhist writings like Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Samyutta Nikaya, and Anguttara Nikaya, the most inspiring and most useful, especially the Majjhima Nikaya and the Samyutta Nikaya. Samyutta Nikaya has all these kind of Vaggas where, like Vedana Samyutta, Khandha Samyutta, where you can select what interests you most. But if you want to, spend some pastime with reading and get inspiration, for example, the questions of King Milinda or Milinda Panya are very, very nice, or the Dhammapada and those books. Or if you want to see how the karmic effects carry one from one life to the other, the Jataka stories, of course, are very inspiring, and the Vimana Vatu, with those people who do good things and end up in heaven, and the Peta Vatu, those people who are doing bad things and end up in hell in the lower fields. They are also very, helpful, because you see, if you believe in that, and of course, I think many people do, once they walk the path, because they experience that there is karma, this will help you to gain inspiration, to change your approach, because it's partly very clearly what happens to those doing good things and to those doing bad things.
Great, thank you. Okay, so this question's been going around a lot of communities, our community as well. Could you please clarify, did the Buddha speak Pali?
How should I clarify? I mean, there have been scholars fighting around it, and every scholar has another approach. And there's K. Norman, who was president of the Pali Text Society. He wrote a long, edict, and in general, I think it is well known that it wasn't Pali, of course, what the Buddha spoke. It was Prakrit. So that's what it is said. And Prakrit was the common language of the people of those days, and this was quite regular. And then it turned into a more literal approach. But what we know, of course, is that the words of the Buddha were maintained in the Pali language. But whether he spoke directly or whether he spoke a bit of the Magadhi dialect or the Prakrit dialect, and how much is it close, you can ask the scholars. But I mean, it's a very common question, but what is important is that we have the words of the Buddha in the Pali. We can read it and we can experience that it gives benefit, especially if you practice meditation as he taught it, and that is a guiding line, and he shows the path in this. And we don't, what does it help to speculate if he really recited it in this way, or if he really spoke it in this exact words, because I mean, there's no doubt that the bhikkhus who after the first, or during the first council, they collected in this way and made it in Pali, which was properly the language which was available or spoken at that time, in a slightly different dialect. If it was Prakrit, I have a dictionary in Prakrit, so sometimes I go to that and I see there's not much difference. I have no scholarly background, fortunately or unfortunately, as you want to say, and also Magadhi. So, you know, because scholarly background often takes you off the path, it gives you just some ideas. Yeah, so that's how much I can reply to that question, but it's not really, I don't think there's a really reply to that.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much for your time. I think we're at the end of our time now, and that's most of the questions. Sorry if we didn't get to your question, but we want to end. So thank you so much, Klaus, for your time.
I hope it helped for some to, you know, do the program, to have a look and get inspiration there. That's what the purpose was. And okay, goodbye. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Thank you so much, Klaus and Marta, for joining us today. On behalf of Pariyatti, I'd like to thank all of you for attending this event. And for those of you who want to explore more of the Pariyatti Learning Center, which was discussed today, please visit learning.pariyatti.org. As a small resource-limited nonprofit organization, we rely on volunteers to help us wherever possible, and today's event would not have been possible without the generous support of both Tina Savla and Chandragupta, so thanks again for your help. It is much appreciated as always.